Dear Professor Bilardo, I'm very glad you could join us today, and thank you very much for this most informative, most interesting presentation. You are absolutely right. The optimal strategy for organizing prenatal screening, ultrasound first, NAPT first, or 2 times ultrasound before and after NAPT. People can discuss it for ages, and all arguments are sound, and you cannot decide. It needs to be evaluated very precisely, and then the decision should be made. My question is about, I know you have a new NIPT in Netherlands. May you tell us a few words about it?
Well, in the Netherlands is a very special situation because since 2017 we have this NIPT for all offer, and in actual fact, as I also explained in my lecture, this meant that all of a sudden we didn't have a first trimester ultrasound anymore, apart from the dating scan, and the dating scan is usually done at around 10 weeks, and then an IPT at 11 weeks. So as I explained to you, this meant that some anomalies that in the previous time were detected at the scan in coincidence of the combined test were now detected only later, and that's what we have addressed in the study of Francesca Bardi that I presented. One of the problems of the NIPT in the Netherlands was that women had to pay a contribution themselves. The test was subsidized by the government, but the women still had to pay 175 euros themselves. And fortunately, this has now stopped, and the offer is now free for all. And what is even more important is that since 2021, a study has started whereby we are evaluating the introduction of a first trimester scan next to an IPT, and see what the impact of this scan will be in terms of detection of anomalies, time in between detection and termination of pregnancy, women's choices and women's experience with this. So we are awaiting the results of this study that are expected to come, well, in the course of the next year or something like that. The data collection has stopped already, and we are waiting for this study, which is called the IMITAS study, to give some results.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think your NIPT is not the basic one. It has a wider spectrum of diagnostic ability.
No, you are not mistaken. It's a genome-wide, which means that also other anomalies besides the common trisomies can be detected. And these are mainly rare autosomal trisomies and structural imbalances, and also some abnormal profiles, like, for instance, in case of a maternal cancer. So it's not the NIPT whereby you also detect microdeletions, because those are much smaller. It's a genome-wide where we detect these abnormal findings, but with a resolution which is less than the one requested for the microdeletion. Yes, and another question is what we will do in the future, because obviously we have done this as a kind of a test. I personally have always been against this broad offer, because I think that it generates more, let's say, anxiety than benefit. And now there have been also already some signals from our health council that they want to restrict the offer. And so in a way, I think that in the future, not all the rare autosomal trisomies will be reported, because we know that besides trisomy 16, where it could make sense the fact that this condition is associated with growth restrictions, so it may also, let's say, create awareness for this condition. All the other rare autosomal trisomies are placental mosaicism, so the fetus is usually normal, and the structural imbalances, if they are severe conditions, usually the fetus will not survive. So in a way, it's not really, let's say, important to screen for this condition, because the fetus will not survive or will have other severe anomalies. And the abnormal maternal profiles, well, you know, they are very rare, and we shouldn't believe that an IPT is a screening test for cancer, because it is not. Otherwise, obviously, it would be used in the general population and much more often. So we shouldn't confuse these kind of things.
As you mentioned at another event, you might end up with more invasive procedures with the help of NIPT, which you wanted to avoid.
Yes, well, in actual fact, you know, the principle of offering NIPT is that because you want to diminish the false positive cases. But in our experience, 2/3 of all the invasive procedures that we were doing were because of the additional findings, because of the mosaicism, because of the structural imbalances. So which in a way is a bit of a contradiction, because you do an IPT to do less invasive procedures, so you shouldn't have a test that induces you to do more tests, and which means in a way that the positive predictive value is less, because there are more for false positive cases. Yeah.
Thank you, dear Professor Bilardo. Another question is, can you please tell about who regulates the performance of ultrasound scans during the pregnancy? I mean, if you needed the whole study to understand that many women didn't have a first trimester scan, it's somehow they didn't ask for it. The doctors didn't prescribe it. How it happened?
Well, you know, in the Netherlands, everything is structured. There is no private medicine in the Netherlands. I think this is the major difference. You know, the government establishes which kind of screening test you will receive. And so women were getting a dating scan, and then the 20-week scan. Until the moment that this IMITAS study started. So it's not like that a Dutch woman can go to a gynecologist and say, I want a first trimester scan. No, if it's not part of the offer of the screening model, she will not get it. Yeah.
And the government thought it's not necessary after then.
Well, they thought it was not necessary, but now, as I mentioned, we have this study, and if the result of this study will be favorable, if it will reveal that the addition of a first trimester ultrasound next to the 20-week scan is beneficial, then I suppose that this will become a part of our regular offer. Well, and obviously there is all discussion whether, let's say the Dutch situation is a luxury one, because you have an IPT, a very costly test, and next to it, a first trimester scan. I think that, in my opinion, would be more logical to start with the scan. And if the scan is doesn't reveal an increased nuchal translucency or an anomaly, then you may do an IPT. There may also be women who don't want the NIPT, because if the scan is normal, it's very unlikely that the baby will have a chromosomal anomaly. But, you know, in a way, the Netherlands has embraced a different and very luxury attitude. And well, I mean, if you are rich and you can do it, fair enough. But if I think in terms of a country where there are not the same kind of opportunities, then I think that it makes sense to start with a scan, because you will end up by doing much less NIPT than if you start with an IPT first.
Yes, I agree. I think there is the recommendation, I hope it is still, I don't know, from the Germany, that they start from the scan plus combined screening, and then with the intermediate risk, they perform an IPT. I don't know how it's going on there, but we will.
Well, probably Professor Kagan will discuss this. I'm sure that he will. Yes.
Just some question. In your presentation, combined screening detected the detection rate of trisomy 13 was closer to detection rate of Down syndrome. And it kind of sounds a bit weird, because there are much more congenital malformation and the changes in biochemical profile. Why it is so? How do you think?
Well, let's say it was very surprisingly high, and that's also what appears from the meta-analysis. Although we know that the positive predictive value for trisomy 13 is not that good, and also the detection rate is less good. So in a way, it was a bit surprising, and I think that, you know, there are few cases, and when you have few cases, sometimes the results that you get are not really very, very robust. That's why, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is just a kind of curiosity. In case of an anomaly missed, a major anomaly missed, what do you usually do in Netherlands? So there is some doctor should study more. There is some what goes after?
Well, let's say it depends on when this happens, but let's say the screening in the Netherlands is not done by doctors, it's done by sonographers. And if an anomaly is missed, usually there is a contact with the sonographer. We ask for the pictures of the scan, and we analyze together with the sonographer whether she hasn't seen it, or maybe she didn't have the right views. I mean, there are different reasons whereby anomalies can be missed. Sometimes you don't see it because you are a little bit blind to it. That is especially the case for heart anomalies, that sometimes the anomaly is there, but it's not recognized as that. Sometimes there are some other factors. The woman is it's obese, and then maybe the quality of the scan is not that good. But usually in that case, the sonographer should say that she didn't see everything optimally. You know, anomalies are always been missed and always will be missed. Because some anomalies maybe are late onset. You do a scan and they are not yet there. But no, there is not such a thing that one should study more, but we usually discuss with the person who has missed the anomaly, where could have she or he done better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Bilardo. I think that's all my questions.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you for the invitation, and it was a very interesting meeting. Thank you.